Title: The Haunting of St. Agnes Desolation. I have always been fascinated by abandoned places. There's something inherently eerie about structures once teeming with life, now shrouded in silence and decay. So when I heard about St. Agnes Desolation, a mysterious abandoned church nestled deep within the woods, I knew I had to explore it. The stories about the church were rife with horror, but I was drawn to it like a moth to a flame. The journey began on a chilly autumn morning. I gathered my gear, including a flashlight, camera, and a notebook, and set off toward the forest where St. Agnes Desolation was said to reside. The overgrown path that led to the church was obscured by the twisted limbs of gnarled trees and the rustling leaves that blanketed the forest floor. As I ventured deeper, the air grew still, and the world seemed to hold its breath. Finally, after hours of walking, I stumbled upon it. St. Agnes Desolation stood alone, the sight of it causing an involuntary shiver to race down my spine. The church was a towering, Gothic masterpiece, its imposing spires reaching toward the heavens. Time and nature had not been kind, for its once vibrant red bricks had weathered to a grim shade of gray. Ivy clung to its walls, attempting to reclaim the building for the earth. I couldn't help but marvel at the grandeur of the structure. The setting sun cast long shadows across the decaying facade, and I knew that my photographs would be a testament to the beauty that had once thrived here. But as I stepped closer, that feeling of unease grew stronger. The church had an eerie presence, as if it held its breath, waiting for something. Reluctantly, I pushed open the heavy wooden doors, and they creaked and groaned in protest, as if they hadn't moved in centuries. Inside, the church was a cavernous expanse of darkness, save for the faint illumination that filtered through broken stained glass windows. The air was musty, thick with the scent of decay, and dust danced in the feeble beams of light. My footsteps echoed through the empty space, reverberating off the crumbling stone walls. It felt as if the very walls of the church were whispering secrets to one another. I walked down the center aisle, my footsteps muffled by the worn, threadbare carpet. Rows of wooden pews, covered in tattered velvet, stood like silent sentinels. On the walls, paintings of saints and angels peered down at me, their eyes following my every move. Intrigued and slightly unnerved, I began to explore further. I found a narrow corridor leading to a set of wooden doors, barely hanging on their hinges. Pushing them open, I discovered a small, dimly lit chamber. At the center of the room was an altar, draped in a moth-eaten cloth. A crucifix hung crookedly above it, its figure twisted and contorted. As I approached the altar, a cold gust of wind rushed through the room, extinguishing my flashlight. The room fell into complete darkness, and I felt a palpable sense of dread wash over me. Fumbling for my flashlight, I struggled to regain my composure. When the light finally pierced the darkness, I froze in terror. Standing at the altar was a figure, shrouded in tattered, priestly vestments. Its back was turned to me, and it seemed to be whispering something in a language I couldn't understand. It was a haunting chant, a lament that sent shivers down my spine. Before I could react, the figure turned to face me. Its eyes were hollow sockets, devoid of life, and its flesh clung to its skeletal frame. It extended a bony, decrepit hand toward me, and I let out a blood-curdling scream. In an instant, the figure vanished, leaving behind a chilling silence that was broken only by the echoes of my own terror. I stumbled back, my heart pounding in my chest, and rushed out of the chamber. It was clear to me now that St. Agnes Desolation was no ordinary abandoned church. It was a place where the boundary between the living and the dead had blurred, a place where restless spirits roamed. As I retreated further into the darkness, I heard faint whispers and ghostly footsteps echoing through the church. The paintings on the walls seemed to come to life, their eyes following me with accusing stares. I felt like an intruder in a realm where I did not belong. In my haste to escape, I stumbled upon a hidden staircase that descended into the bowels of the church. The air grew colder, and the atmosphere heavier as I ventured deeper into the subterranean labyrinth. The walls were lined with ancient, crumbling books, their pages filled with cryptic symbols and incantations. At the end of the corridor, I found a chamber illuminated by a faint, unearthly glow. In the center of the room, a circular arrangement of candles flickered with an eerie light. At its center, a pentagram was etched into the stone floor, and in the middle of the pentagram a figure lay, wrapped in a tattered white shroud. As I approached, I could see that the figure was not merely a lifeless corpse, but a grotesque, decaying monstrosity. Its flesh was rotting, and its eyes glowed with malevolent intensity. I could feel its gaze pierce through me, and a sinister grin twisted its decaying lips. A feeling of malevolence and dread washed over me, and I knew that I had stumbled upon something unspeakably evil. I desperately tried to retrace my steps and escape the accursed place, but the labyrinthine passages of the underground chamber seemed to shift and change, trapping me in an endless maze. The whispers grew louder, and shadowy figures darted in and out of my peripheral vision. The air grew thick with a nauseating stench of decay, and the walls of the underground maze seemed to close in on me. Panic set in, and I ran in every direction, but the corridors led me in circles, as if the very walls of the church conspired against my escape. Finally, as I rounded a corner, I stumbled upon a chamber bathed in a sickly, green light. At its center, a monstrous, multi-limbed creature emerged from the shadows, its grotesque form defying description. It hissed and extended its misshapen limbs toward me, and I felt a paralyzing terror grip my very soul. With every ounce of my strength, I turned and fled, rushing through the ever-shifting corridors, haunted by the grotesque figure and the malevolent presence that lurked in the darkness. It seemed like an eternity before I finally burst out into the open air, gasping for breath. As I stood before the desolate church, I realized that I had narrowly escaped a fate worse than death. St. Agnes Desolation was not a place for the living, but a cursed sanctuary of the damned. Its malevolent spirits and otherworldly horrors would forever haunt my nightmares, a reminder of the unfathomable evil that resided within those decaying walls. I stumbled back into the forest, vowing never to return to that accursed place. The sun had long since set, and the night was filled with haunting whispers and ghostly apparitions. I couldn't shake the feeling that the church, with all its secrets and horrors, still watched over me from the depths of the woods. My fascination with abandoned places had led me to the most terrifying and otherworldly experience of my life. St. Agnes Desolation was a nightmare that I would never forget, a place where the line between the living and the dead had blurred, and where the forces of darkness reigned supreme. It was a place I would never speak of, a secret that would forever haunt me, a chilling reminder that some mysteries are better left unexplored.